Hey everyone, welcome to the first video in a series I'm calling The Atmosphere of. A series where we stop and just take in the atmosphere of a video game. The first game I'm covering in this series is Silent Hill 2. One of my favorite games ever and one that I think absolutely nails atmosphere. Horror games in general do a really good job of building atmosphere, so I'm really excited to get into this one. There will be some light spoilers in this video. So why don't we get started and break down what makes the atmosphere in Silent Hill 2 a masterclass in psychological horror. First up is the environment. The game takes place in the titular town of Silent Hill, a town surrounded in a thick, dense fog that clouds our vision. The opening of the game is like a 5-minute walk into the town of Silent Hill, which does a really good job of creating the feeling of isolation. But it turns out we're not really alone out here. Monsters also roam the fog-ridden streets. The town is filled with abandoned vehicles, decaying buildings and shops. We can even go in and explore some of them. There's an eerie silence as you explore the town that's occasionally broken by radio static when you're near enemies. The silence really makes you feel uneasy. What happened to this town? What happened to the people that used to live here? This town was once filled with life and people, but now it's just a ghost town. Throughout the game, we explore some apartments, a prison, a hospital, a hotel, and other smaller areas. Every major indoor area in the game is kind of like a dungeon. It's easy to get lost if you don't know where you're going and not constantly checking on your map. The apartments are the first major area we explore. Inside, you'll find long hallways with monsters waiting for you in the dark. There's a room where we grab our flashlight with a mannequin wearing our dead wife's clothes. A room where we grab our gun with the walls riddled with bullets. A room with a corpse on a sofa, and apparently the model used for this corpse is the same exact model as James, our playable character.
Oh my god. Who could have?
Which just makes this room even creepier. And one of my favorite rooms with this big mirror and our reflection staring back at us and some really damn good music in the background. I just like to chill in this room and vibe to the music. After a quick fight with Pyramid Head, we finally leave the apartments. And the next major area is the Brookhaven Hospital, an abandoned hospital with multiple patient rooms, creepy monsters that resemble nurses roaming the dark hallways. There are notes and diaries that we can find throughout the hospital written by the patients that used to be here. Reading these notes, we realize that this place was more of a mental institution for mentally unstable people. We get the sense that there's just a lot of dark history here, with a bunch of sinister things that happen. There's a patient room that's filled with writing and blood. There's a note where a patient talks about being locked in a basement. There's a diary we can find on the roof that ends abruptly, insinuating that whoever wrote this was either killed or took their own life. After we explore the hospital for a while, we get transported to a nightmare version of the hospital, which still shares the same exact layout as the regular hospital, but now everything has a more rundown and rusted look to it. When we get transported to this nightmare dimension, we end up in this room. This room is really weird. It's a pretty small room with no roof or flooring, and it's also raining. There's no reason for a room like this to exist, and yet here it is. To add to the eeriness of this little room, there's an item that we can use in the game, but only at certain locations. This room is one of those locations, and when we use this item in this room, this happens. Yeah, creepy. There's also a segment where we ride an elevator and some radio with a game show host starts playing out of nowhere.
Hi there, everybody! Thanks for tuning in. Welcome to another exciting edition of Trick or Treat. Here you either answer the questions correctly and win a great prize, or fail to answer correctly and receive the punishment. It all depends on you.
Yeah, this is a weird segment in the game. After we make it out of the hospital, we're back to exploring Silent Hill, but this time it's really dark out. We can barely see anything even with our flashlight. Everything that our flashlight doesn't touch is just pitch black. We go through this tunnel area with a fence floor and these weird looking monsters crawling beneath the floor. We can also go back to some of the areas that we've explored when we first arrived in Silent Hill. It just feels really eerie exploring Silent Hill when it's pitch black. The atmosphere here does a really good job of making it feel like we're the only living soul in town. We really are alone now. The next major area is Toluca Prison. We actually get in this prison by jumping down what looks like a bottomless hole. And then jumping down another even bigger hole, furthering the sense of isolation. At this point, there's no coming back the way we came. The prison has a really rusted look to it. It looks much more run down than the hospital did. There are some hallways filled with prisoner cells. We can even find some monsters locked inside some of these cells. There's an open cell with a bunch of books scattered and some scribblings on the walls. There's a cell that we can go into, but when we try to go back out, we find out that the cell is now locked, until we interact with the door a few times. There's this weird outdoor area that's pretty spacious, and in the middle of this area there's a platform with 3 ropes hanging from it. There are some slots where we put in some key items, and when we put all key items in, we hear this scream. With no one in sight. Creepy. Reaching the end of the prison area, we open up yet another seemingly bottomless hole. We go down, find some dead bodies. And go down yet another hole. And as soon as we get down that hole, we immediately go down another hole. These are 3 holes that we went down into in the span of 1 minute. We are way past the point of no return now. But it still isn't over. After the 3rd hole, we immediately reach this elevator that goes on and on for a pretty good while. I feel like this is supposed to represent us going further and further into James's mind and subconscious, and further building on the feeling of dread and isolation. How deep are we gonna go? After a while, we reach this room where we encounter a boss. The walls and floors in this room have this nasty looking flesh-like texture. There's also holes all around the walls with these fleshy cylinder-shaped objects going in and out. We actually meet a pretty prominent side character in this room who is an abuse victim. And knowing that, it really makes the imagery in this room so much more disturbing. We make our way back outside and we find a rowboat. Looks like we have to cross the lake. This boat is our only way forward. But before we get on the boat, we can actually use that special item that I used before. If we use it in this location, we get this cutscene. We get on the boat and start rowing. There's nothing around us but the lake and fog. We can barely make out a light out in the distance. We follow that light for about a minute or so, and we finally dock the boat. We've now reached the Lakeview Hotel. Inside the hotel, it doesn't look as deteriorated as the other areas in the game. Don't get me wrong, some areas are pretty beat up, but not as much as the hospital or the prison. There's a cozy little bar area that we can get into. In the main lobby, there's some kind of music box that we can use after collecting all key items. It plays some pretty creepy sounding music. There's a serene little room that we go into with some big windows letting in the light from outside. This is the last room where we can use the blue gem item. And if you use the item in the other two areas that I showed you as well, we get a special ending known as the UFO ending, featuring the main character from the first game, which is just really bizarre. Check it out. And that's pretty much all the major environments in the game, so let's move on to the music and sound effects. The soundtrack in this game is absolutely phenomenal thanks to composer Akira Yamaoka. Seriously, I don't think there's a single track that I don't like. It's all good and just fits perfectly into the game. If you stay idle in the main menu for a while, we get a short introduction movie that uses a track named Theme of Laura. This track just gets you hyped up for the journey ahead. There are some CGI scenes in here that we don't see anywhere else in the game, which is pretty cool. There's a strip club that we go into on our way to the hospital known as Heaven's Night. We're really only in here for a little while, but I always end up staying longer than I need to, thanks to this catchy track. There's a section towards the end of the game where we end up in some sort of graveyard. If we explore and interact with some of the tombstones, we can see the names of some of the characters we meet in the game. We even find a gravestone with James's name on it. As we explore, there's a catchy but creepy sounding track playing. This has to be one of my favorite tracks in the entire game. Towards the end of the hotel section, we walk through the hotel with an ethereal track playing and water droplets hitting the ground in the background. I really love this segment. In the Pyramid Head boss fight, there's an angelic sounding track that plays. This track is hauntingly beautiful. It gives you the feeling of hope. The sound effects were also done by Akira Yamaoka. The sounds for the monsters in the game were created by mixing some animal sounds together. The sound effect that plays whenever you pick something up sounds pretty satisfying. I don't know how to explain it, I just like the way it sounds. There are some sounds that play throughout the game that startle you because they're unexpected. Like in this room in the hospital, we can hear a window break when we get close to the wall. And in the prison, when we're inside this cell, we can hear some creepy whispering. There's a segment in the game where we go down what seems like an endless staircase. I remember the first time I played this game, I really thought it was endless, but I noticed that the sound effects at play were getting louder and louder the further I went. The first time I played this, it was pretty intense. It does a fantastic job of building tension. I love it. Last thing I wanted to talk about was voice performances. The acting in this game certainly won't win any awards or anything. Characters sound dissociated and sort of dreamlike, if that makes any sense. But honestly, it really works for this game. It makes the segments where the characters talk feel kind of surreal, which again, works in the game's favor.
Excuse me,
Oh, I'm sorry. I
No,
was
it's
just...
okay. I didn't mean to scare you. I'm kind of lost.
Lost?
With that being said, though, there are some parts in the game where I think the voice performances are really good. Like in this cutscene where the character Maria yells at James.
Anyway, I'm glad you're alive.
Anyway? What do you mean, anyway? You don't sound very happy to see me. I was almost killed back there. Why didn't you try to save me? All you care about is that dead wife of yours. I've never been so scared in my whole life. You couldn't care less about me, could you?
And this cutscene where the character Angela has a breakdown.
You're only after one thing.
No, that's not true at all.
You don't have to lie. Go ahead and say it. Or you could just force me. Beat me up like you always did. You only care about yourself anyway. You disgusting pig.
Angela.
Don't touch me!
Before the Pyramid Head boss fight, there's a cutscene where James is screaming and begging Pyramid Head to leave him alone.
Stop! Leave her alone! Leave us both the hell alone! Ah!
And in the ending where James is talking to Mary, it gives me chills. This is a spoiler, so watch at your own risk.
That's why I did it, honey. I just couldn't watch you suffer. No. That's not true. You also said you didn't want to die. The truth is, I hated you. I wanted you out of the way. I wanted my life back.
James, if that were true, then why do you look so sad?
And I also want to mention my favorite line in the game. The line delivery here is just perfect.
This town is full of monsters. How can you sit there and eat pizza?
Well, thanks for coming on this journey with me. I hope you enjoyed taking in the atmosphere of Silent Hill 2. If you made it this far, first of all, thank you so much for watching. Comment down below what your favorite area in the game is. I'm curious to know. My personal favorite area has to be the Heaven's Night strip club. I just really love the music in here. Well, that's a wrap for me. If you enjoyed, please feel free to like and subscribe. I'll be making more videos like this. Also, let me know if you have any suggestions for future videos that you like to see. With all that being said, I'm Soundwave, and thank you so much for watching.